The stars hung still outside the thick glass windows of Lyra Voss's shuttle, cold, distant, beautiful. She had seen 1,000 systems in her career, but nothing felt quite like the moment of arrival, when you crossed from the safety of space into the unknown of politics, tension, and expectation. Station Prime floated ahead like a metal starburst. It was massive, almost too massive for a station, stretching across kilometers in every direction. Built by the Galactic Coalition as a symbol of unity, it was home to over 1 million residents and visitors. Every known species had a place there. Every species, including the feared ones, including humans. As the shuttle connected with Docking Arm 7C, Lyra stood from her seat. She adjusted the collar of her black uniform and looked at her reflection in the glass. Sharp eyes, steady hands. But there was tiredness too. Years of diplomacy, peacekeeping, and walking on eggshells had worn her down. Being a human in a galaxy that feared your very biology came with its own weight. "Welcome to Station Prime, Captain Voss," the shuttle's AI chimed. She gave no answer and walked out into the docking corridor. Her boots clicked softly on the polished alloy floor. 2 station guards, scaled and four-eyed, saluted her. She nodded back. No one smiled. Waiting at the security gate was her team, Lieutenant Iko Dren, her second-in-command and a tech specialist, and Dr. Elra Van, a linguist and cultural liaison. Iko was lean, quick-thinking, and never far from his datapad. Elra, older and slower, brought balance and perspective. Together, they were Earth's peacekeeping delegation. "Status?" Lyra asked as they began walking toward the summit hall. "No protests, yet," Iko said. "But there's tension in the air. News feeds are running stories about Deathworlder dominances again. They always do before a vote," Elra added. "The Corran Syndicate is calling for human disarmament measures. Again." Lyra exhaled slowly. Nothing new, just louder this time. They reached the summit level, high ceilings, diplomatic banners, translation drones humming softly in the air. Dozens of species passed by. A few stopped to stare. Humans didn't come often. When they did, others noticed. Most avoided eye contact. Then he appeared, High Inquisitor Kethsai. He glided forward on his mechanical legs, his long red robes whispering across the floor. His face was narrow and pale blue, with a smooth crest instead of hair. 2 eyes, black and unreadable, locked onto Lyra. "Captain Voss," he said in a voice that sounded like cold wind through hollow pipes. "What a surprise. I thought Earth had no more interest in politics." "Peace is everyone's business," Lyra said, her voice calm. He tilted his head. "Of course." Though some peacekeepers arrive with fists still clenched, Lyra ignored the jab. "I'm here to represent Earth, nothing more." Kethsai gave a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Then may your stay be peaceful." He turned and disappeared into the hall. The silence he left behind said more than his words. The rest of the day passed in quiet tension. Meetings, briefings, phrases repeated in a dozen languages, cooperation, non-aggression, respect for sovereign space. They all meant the same thing: keep the Deathworlders tame. By night the halls dimmed and the station shifted into its rest cycle. Lyra sat alone in her quarters, staring out at the dying star the station orbited. It burned orange and red, swollen and slow. A fitting image, she thought. Beautiful but on the edge of collapse. Then the alarm sounded. The voice of the station AI cut through the quiet. "Explosion detected. Sector 9G, Verne Embassy. Emergency response dispatched." Lyra was on her feet in seconds. She grabbed her comm and called Iko. "I'm already on it." His voice came through, breathless. "They're saying it was us. A human." "What?" "Security footage shows a human figure. Bomb planted. Dozens dead." Lyra's heart stopped for a second. The Deathworlders had played fair for so long. They followed every rule, signed every treaty, bent over backwards to prove they could be trusted. And now someone had just lit a match. She stared at the flashing screen. Names of the dead were starting to appear. Most were diplomats, all Verne, peaceful, delicate beings, not built for war. Lyra's voice came low and steady. Meet me at Security Command. We find out who did this, and we prove it wasn't us. But in her gut she already knew. This wasn't an accident, it was a trap. The corridor outside Station Prime Security Command smelled of hot metal and disinfectant. It was always this way after an explosion. Cleanup drones working overtime, emergency doors still sealed, and the faint chemical trace of something burnt. Captain Lyra Voss stood at the checkpoint, flanked by 2 armed security bots and her second-in-command, Lieutenant Iko Dren. Voss, Earth Delegation, clearance code 448 Sigma, she said. A moment passed. Then the door slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside, the air was cooler. The security hub was circular, with glowing screens that displayed live feeds from across the station. Dozens of species filled the room, analysts, commanders, and AI interfaces. Everyone looked tense. No one was talking. A Sorak officer, insectoid with bright green carapace and 6 twitching eyes, turned to greet them. "You're here about the Verne bombing," it clicked in a sharp but clear tone. "Footage shows a human." "Then show it," Lyra replied. The officer tapped a control panel. A screen expanded overhead. A grainy video played on loop. A hallway near the Verne embassy. A figure in a dark uniform stepped forward, planted a device against the wall, and walked away. Seconds later, a white flash. Then smoke, screams, and chaos. "Pause," Lyra said. The image froze. The figure's face was turned, blurred by motion. "Magnify frame 241. Iko said quickly. "Zoom. Enhance." The system obeyed. A partial side profile appeared. Short cropped hair, dark collar, and something glinting on the shoulder. Lyra narrowed her eyes. "That patch. It's an old Earth security logo, discontinued 3 years ago. It could have been taken from an old uniform," Iko added, "or made to look that way." The Sorak officer twitched. "Your point is noted, but the evidence is clear." "No," Lyra said. "It's not clear. It's convenient." The officer said nothing. Lyra stepped closer to the console. "Can I have access to the raw data feed from that corridor? Time codes, thermal imaging, anything off-network?" The officer hesitated. "You are under suspicion, Captain. Protocol also says I have a right to investigate if a member of my species is accused of terrorism on a diplomatic station." Her voice was calm, but iron hard. "Unless the coalition has rewritten that too." The room went silent. A few heads turned. Then the officer relented. "I will authorize limited access, but you are being watched." "We all are," Lyra said, turning away. Back in the private delegation room, Iko and Lyra plugged into the raw footage files. Hours passed. Shadows moved across screens. Time codes blinked. Elra Van entered quietly and handed Lyra a cup of hot synthleaf tea. "You look like you haven't blinked in an hour," Elra said softly. "I haven't," Lyra replied. She rubbed her eyes. "There's something wrong with this footage." Iko snapped his fingers. "Here, look at this." On the screen, a tiny heat signature appeared on the frame 2 minutes before the explosion. "That's not the bomber. That's a different figure, smaller, hidden behind a service panel. And then it vanishes," Lyra said. "Where did they go?" "They accessed a maintenance airlock," Iko said. "That leads into the vent system. Only someone who knows this station well would use it. And not many species can fit into those ducts." Elra added. "That rules out half the station." Lyra sat back. "Someone staged this. Someone wants humans blamed. And they're counting on fear to blind the rest of the coalition." Later that night, Lyra found herself standing at the edge of a quiet overlook near the outer hull. Through the glass, the dying star glowed softly. Ships drifted by, unaware that history was about to shift. Behind her, footsteps approached. It was Selen, a station engineer she'd met during her last visit. A tall, grey-skinned being with long fingers and soft, blinking eyes. "I heard," Selen said. "The footage, the accusations. It doesn't feel right." "You believe it's false?" Lyra asked. "I believe what makes the least sense is usually the truth." I checked the security logs from the power grid near the Verne embassy. There was a drain spike 20 seconds before the explosion. Someone rerouted power, typical of remote detonations. "Let me guess," Lyra said. The reroute was traced to a human ID tag. Selen nodded slowly. It's all too clean, Lyra muttered. Too smooth. The timing, the footage, the planted ID, it's made to make us look like monsters. Selen handed her a small data drive. This is everything I found. It's not much, but it shows the ID tag was injected into the system after the explosion. That changed everything. Thank you, Lyra said. You may have just saved us. Selen gave a small bow. I'm not saving you. I'm saving the station. If war starts here, we all burn. Lyra watched as Selen disappeared into the shadows. She turned back to the glass and stared into the deep void beyond the station. Someone wanted the galaxy to fear humans again. Someone had lit the match, but the fire hadn't spread yet. Lyra clenched her fists. She would find the truth, and when she did, no one would be able to ignore it. The corridors of Station Prime were quieter than usual, like the station was holding its breath. Tension lingered in the air, thick as smoke. Captain Lyra Voss walked briskly toward the diplomatic wing. The data drive Selen had given her tucked tightly in her coat. She had not slept. There was no time for rest when war was being staged in the shadows. Inside the Earth delegation office, Lieutenant Iko Dren sat at his station, eyes red from long hours, scanning through data. Run it again, Lyra said, placing the drive beside him. He nodded and plugged it in. The screen lit up with a new sequence, power logs from the Verne Embassy corridor. It showed exactly what Selen had said. The human ID tag had been inserted into the system after the explosion, not before. It's a frame job, Iko said, but no one's going to believe it without more. We don't need belief, Lyra said. We need proof that can't be denied. Elravan stood nearby watching them. You're assuming they care about proof. Kethsai doesn't want justice. He wants us gone. Then we hit first, Lyra said. Not with weapons, with the truth. She didn't get the chance. Suddenly, the station alarms blared. Emergency alert. Coalition patrol vessel Verdict's Echo has suffered critical damage. Life support failure detected. Casualties confirmed. Possible sabotage. Lyra froze. No, she whispered. The screen in front of them changed. News feeds, live footage, chaos. A second explosion. Another attack. This time, a military target, and again all signs pointed to a human operative. By the time Lyra reached the command hall, the mood had shifted completely. No longer suspicion, now outright fury. Delegates shouted over each other in dozens of languages. The word war was no longer a whisper, it was on every tongue. High Inquisitor Kethsai stood in the center of the room, calm, composed, dangerous. The evidence is overwhelming, he said. First, the murder of diplomats. Now an attack on a coalition vessel. We must act before this threat spreads. Lyra pushed her way forward. That evidence is planted. I have data. No more excuses, Captain Voss. Kethsai interrupted. You and your kind were given a chance to live among the stars. You responded with violence. We've responded with restraint for a century. Lyra snapped. You've all seen what humans are capable of, and how carefully we've held ourselves back. That ends today. I will not let Earth be branded a terrorist state without truth. She turned to the Coalition Council. You're being manipulated. There's a third party here, using fear to divide us. Enough, one delegate shouted. You want us to believe humans are the victims again. Another added, you were a Deathworlder pretending to be peaceful. That mask is breaking. Lyra realized then, it wasn't just Kethsai. Many of them had wanted this to be true. It gave them justification to act on long-standing fear. For too long, Earth's power had made others nervous. Now they had an excuse to strike. Later that evening, Lyra sat in a dim communications room with Iko and Elra. They were tired, silent. The second attack had changed everything. We're past diplomacy, Elra said finally. No, Lyra said, her voice quiet. We're not, but we're alone. Iko pulled up a map of the station. If we want to survive, we need help, real help. Someone who knows what Kethsai's doing behind the curtain. There's only one place that data might exist, Elra said. Level 47, Black Archives. It's not official, but station engineers use it to store discarded security logs and prototype tech. It's unlisted, Aiko added. And probably illegal, Lyra stood. Then that's where we go. That night, they moved through the dark underbelly of Station Prime. Pipes dripped, lights flickered, voices echoed faintly from far above. This was a side of the station no one wanted outsiders to see. They reached level 47. The door was sealed with a dead console. Aiko knelt and started working. Sparks flew. The lock hissed. Inside was a chamber filled with dusty servers and broken tech. Lyra walked through slowly, her flashlight cutting across forgotten history. Aiko connected to a terminal and began downloading data. Suddenly, the lights went red. A warning flashed. Unauthorized access detected. Intrusion protocol engaged. Someone's watching us, Aiko said. Cut the feed, Lyra ordered. Too late, the screen flickered, and Kethsai's face appeared. I warned you, he said. Your efforts are meaningless. The galaxy has already made up its mind. Then the screen went dark. Back in their quarters, Lyra paced in silence. We have enough, Aiko said. The records prove Kethsai's been moving agents around the station, species loyal to him, not humans. The attacks weren't just staged, they were orchestrated. We send this to the Coalition, Elra added. They'll have to listen. They won't, Lyra said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. But Earth will. She sent the message to Earth High Command. Encryption Sigma Black. Initiate Protocol Omega. We are no longer playing fair. She sat down and closed her eyes. The galaxy had asked what would happen if Deathworlders stopped holding back. They were about to find out. The message from Captain Lyra Voss sped through subspace, bouncing between relay satellites, disappearing into folded dimensions, and finally reaching the edge of a pale blue planet. At Earth's orbital defense station, alarms went off. Red lights pulsed, generals stirred, AI war cores came online. In seconds, Protocol Omega was confirmed. Earth was no longer waiting. Lyra stood at the window of her quarters on Station Prime, watching the stars. She felt hollow, empty but sharp, like the quiet before a storm. Around her, the Coalition was unraveling. The second bombing had shattered trust. Rumors spread faster than truth. Delegates left the station. Fleets began moving. Deathworlders, long feared for what they could do, were now seen as what they were: dangerous, unpredictable, and uncontainable. A chime broke the silence. A message had arrived. Earth had answered. Aiko and Elra entered the room just as Lyra played it. A calm voice spoke. Protocol Omega confirmed. Fleet detachment en route. Non-lethal engagement authorized. Stand by. Aiko looked stunned. They're actually coming. They're not attacking, Elra said, reading the fine print. They're disabling. They want to make a point. Lyra nodded. Good. We're not here to destroy the galaxy, just to remind it what we've been holding back. 2 hours later, they saw it happen. From the outer decks of Station Prime, hundreds gathered in silence. Delegates, staff, guards, different species, all standing together under the glass dome, staring into space. And then they arrived. Earth's fleet blinked into existence. No warning, no sound, no threats. Ships larger than anything in the Coalition Navy, sleek, dark, quiet. They moved like predators through still water, but they did not fire. Instead, they acted with terrifying precision. In 10 minutes, they shut down half the Coalition fleet without destroying a single ship. Engines stopped, weapons powered down, communication arrays went dark. Earth's cyber weapons, unseen, undetected, slipped through security systems like whispers in the dark. Station Prime's command deck received thousands of emergency calls. Power failure on patrol vessel, weapon controls locked, defense grid offline, no damage but full system override, requesting immediate technical support. It was bloodless, but it was domination. Kethsai stood in the center of the Coalition war room, surrounded by blank screens and failing systems. For once his calm mask cracked. This is an act of war, he hissed. No, said a voice behind him. This is a warning. Lyra walked into the chamber. Guards moved to stop her, but no one dared touch her now. She held her head high, eyes burning. You staged the attacks, she said. You wanted the galaxy to fear us. You wanted a reason to destroy us. HFY sneered. You proved me right. You showed your true nature. No, Lyra replied. We showed restraint for 100 years. We followed your rules, walked your halls, signed your treaties. We bent ourselves into something smaller so the rest of you wouldn't be afraid. She stepped closer, and when that wasn't enough, you lied. You murdered. You blamed us. HFY's voice turned cold. You're monsters, all of you. Lyra leaned in, voice low. You made us stop pretending we weren't. Across the station, screens lit up with a final message from Earth's command. Let this be enough. We do not seek conquest. We seek truth. But we will not be made into villains for the comfort of cowards. A coalition leader tried to speak, but their mic was already silent. In every language, across every channel, the message was the same. The Deathworlders were done playing fair. Back in her quarters, Lyra stood over a tactical map. The coalition forces were scattered. Earth's fleet hadn't damaged a single hull, and yet they had won. She turned to Elra and Aiko. What happens now? Aiko asked. We wait, Lyra said. We give them time to think, to understand, and if they don't, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. That night, the stars outside Station Prime looked different. They weren't peaceful anymore. They were watching. Station Prime had fallen silent. Not from damage, not from war, from fear. After the arrival of the Earth fleet, no one dared speak too loudly. Delegates whispered in corners. Military officers walked slowly, careful not to appear aggressive. The power had shifted. The illusion of control, of balance, was shattered. Everyone now understood what Deathworlders were truly capable of. But Captain Lyra Voss wasn't finished yet. Not while HFY still walked free. Lyra stood inside a private chamber beneath the station's summit tower. Her hand rested on the holotable, which displayed the paths of hidden data trails, movements, falsified logs, backdoor communications. Aiko had decrypted them. Elra had translated the subtext. Every line pointed to the same conclusion. High Inquisitor HFY had orchestrated the bombings. He had used third-party agents, off-world mercenaries, and former Dominion loyalists. He planted false data, bribed coalition analysts, and erased files just long enough to make Earth look guilty. Now they had everything, but showing the truth wasn't enough anymore. HFY had used fear to create chaos. That could not go unanswered. He's still in the command dome, Elra said, under protective guard. Not for long, Lyra replied. She left the room, cloak sweeping behind her. She did not bring soldiers. She didn't need them. After what had happened, the guards were just watching now, unsure of what to do, unsure of who held the power. When she reached the dome, the Coalition Council was already gathered. The air was thick with unease. HFY stood at the center, arms folded behind his back, as if he was still in charge. He looked at her, smiled faintly. So the Predator returns. Lyra stepped forward, unshaken. This ends now, she said. Does it? HFY asked, voice smooth. I don't see Earth destroying us. I see restraint, fear, doubt. No, Lyra said. You see mercy, but don't confuse that for weakness. She raised her arm. A projection filled the center of the chamber. HFY's orders, intercepted messages, false reports with his authorization code. The council watched in silence. No one moved. You created the crisis, Lyra said. You framed Earth, killed innocents, and almost started a war. HFY's expression didn't change. And yet, look how effective it was. Look how quickly the galaxy folded before your power. I proved my point. You proved you're a coward, Lyra said coldly. A coward who hid behind fear and lies. You never wanted peace. You wanted control. One of the council members, a Trellari elder with silver skin and no mouth, who spoke only through thought transmission, stood and broadcasted a message through the chamber. We confirm the data. The Inquisitor is guilty of high treason, manipulation and incitement to galactic war. Others began to nod, or raise signs of agreement. HFY's hands remained clasped behind his back. So this is how it ends. Judgment by mob. No, Lyra said. This is justice. She turned to the guards. You will escort him to holding. Earth will not decide his fate. The Coalition will, if it survives what he's done. For a moment the guards didn't move. Then one stepped forward, then another. Quetzai looked around, suddenly smaller than before. His mouth curled in disgust. "You think this changes anything?" he snarled. "You think the galaxy will welcome your kind now? You've shown them what you really are." Lyra didn't flinch. "We showed them what happens when you push us too far." The guards seized Quetzai and pulled him from the chamber. He did not struggle, but his eyes burned with hate. As the doors closed behind him, silence returned. But this time it was different. This time, it felt like the galaxy was finally listening. Hours later, Lyra walked through the lower decks of the station. No guards followed her. No staff interrupted. She moved through the quiet with a kind of gravity around her. Not of fame, but of consequence. She stopped at a wide viewport. The stars stretched beyond the glass, calm and endless. Aiko approached behind her. "Quetzai is being transferred to Coalition Command on neutral ground. Trial begins in 3 days." "Good," Lyra said. "Alra thinks the council might hold together." Aiko added, "Barely. They're scared, but maybe that's enough." Lyra didn't answer right away. She placed her hand against the glass. "I didn't want this," she said. "Any of it. We came here to prove we weren't what they feared. But in the end they forced us to show them." "You did what you had to," Aiko said. Lyra turned to him. "I'm not proud of what we did, but I'm done apologizing for what we are." That night, a message was sent from Station Prime. It traveled to every world in the Coalition. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was just one sentence, spoken in every language. "We are still Deathworlders, but we are not your enemy unless you make us one." The galaxy took a breath, and waited. The trial of High Inquisitor Quetzai took place on Rona 4, a neutral moon known for its silent, barren surface and old traditions of justice. No warships circled above. No protests erupted. The Coalition had seen enough destruction and deception. Now it wanted truth and accountability. The evidence presented was undeniable. Data forged, security records tampered, secret messages sent to mercenary agents across the galaxy. Quetzai had set the whole chain of events in motion, believing the fear of Deathworlders would justify his actions. He was wrong. The Coalition Council passed sentence unanimously, guilty of treason, attempted genocide and conspiracy to incite interstellar war. He was stripped of all titles and imprisoned on a deep space penal world, surrounded by silence and vacuum. Quetzai's name would be remembered, not as a protector of peace, but as a symbol of fear that nearly shattered the galaxy. Captain Lyra Voss watched the ruling from her quarters aboard the Earth flagship Sol's Resolve, now docked outside Station Prime. She didn't cheer. She didn't smile. She simply exhaled. Elra Van entered the room holding a small device, a simple message capsule. "It's official," Elra said. "Earth and the Deathworlder delegates have been cleared of all charges. The Coalition wants to rebuild trust." Lyra nodded. "They don't trust us. They fear us. They always have." "Maybe now they'll listen," Elra said. "At least enough to stop lying to themselves." She placed the message capsule on the table. Lyra picked it up. A message from Earth, from her home. It read, "Do you wish to return, Captain?" Lyra stared at it for a long time before placing it down. "I don't know," she said. The galaxy had changed. Coalition forces were being restructured. Delegates from harsh worlds, Deathworlds, were now gaining influence. No longer hidden in the back of meetings, no longer looked upon as beasts to be tamed. The Kultor, the Nazari, the Terrans, all once feared, now respected. But respect didn't come from kindness. It came from showing the galaxy that their restraint had limits. That day on Station Prime had become a new date on the Coalition calendar, the day Deathworlders stopped playing fair. Weeks later, Lyra stood on a small grassy plain on a newly colonized world, green sky above, cool wind across her face. No towers, no meetings, no warships in orbit, just silence. Aiko had returned home to Earth. Elra had chosen to remain as Earth's ambassador to the new Coalition Security Council, but Lyra had stepped away, not to hide, to reflect. She recorded a final report for Earth, her voice calm even. I don't know if we won anything. Not really. We stopped a war, yes. We proved our innocence, but something changed in us too. We showed the galaxy that we could break their chains if we wanted to, and they'll never forget that. They'll never see us the same way again. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's what peace truly costs. Truth, not illusion. This isn't a threat. It's not even a warning. It's a memory, a lesson. This is the day we stopped playing fair, and this is the day the galaxy began to understand who we really are. She ended the recording. Outside, the wind rustled across the field. A transport ship crossed the sky, silent and slow. The stars were watching, and the legend was just beginning.